Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So, between the FBI's reckless Mar-A-Lago raid, the bogus January 6th commission, and the shocking labeling of patriots as domestic terrorists, it appears that many of our government agencies have been weaponized against their political opponents and against we the people. So, where do we go from here? Is the United States just stepping stones away from becoming a modern day Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia? Will they succeed in bringing Trump down, or as always, is he 3 steps ahead? Joining me today is Kash Patel, former chief of staff for the Department of Defense under President Trump, and we're going to be covering all this and more. Before we get started, a few short messages. Today's show is brought to you by Rise TV. Rise TV is a Patriot-owned streaming platform where our mission is to uncover the truth, no matter how dark and difficult, while always holding on to hope. There's a link for a free trial in the description below, and if you want to support my work, that's the best way to do it. And folks, with all this hyperinflation going on and with food and energy shortages just around the corner, we need to protect ourselves in every way possible. This is why I believe that now more than ever, it's a good time to consider transferring at least some of your wealth into physical gold and silver, real world assets that have stood the test of time. And for this, I'm confident recommending Noble Gold. You can buy gold and silver directly, or you can even transfer your IRA into physical gold and silver with zero taxes or penalties. To find out how to protect your wealth, open up a new tab right now and go to goldwithseth.com, or you can call 877-646-5347. Again, it's 877-646-5347. All right, folks, we have a little bit shorter of a show today. Kash has a tight schedule, so we're going to go ahead and dive right into it. So let's go ahead and welcome Kash Patel. Kate, for some reason, my button's not bringing him in on the split screen. You do that for me real quick? He's waiting there, waiting for us. We're going to have a fantastic interview today. And while we're waiting to bring him in, let me just remind you, everyone watching or listening, that the best way to do this is to share the video. So, Kate, we have him in now? Okay. All right, Kash, welcome to Man America. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Seth. Appreciate it.
All right, so I know you got a hard cutoff at 2 o'clock in about 42 minutes, 20 minutes or so. So let's just dive right into this, right? We're all watching this Mar-A-Lago raid unfold, and it wouldn't surprise me. Actually, it would actually not surprise me at all if the FBI is, tampering with evidence, everything we're already seeing. But the real question with this is, do you think they're going to be able to indict Trump? Are they going to be able to successfully use this? We know that they're weaponizing the legal system, the justice system against him. Will they be able to bring him down with this? What do you think?
No. And look, as a former national security prosecutor who worked at the National Security Division of the Department of Justice with a lot of these FBI guys and DOJ guys, and as a former chief of staff, chief investigator for Devin Nunes' Russiagate, I both fought alongside career amazing FBI and DOJ agents and exposed the most corrupt in the United States history. So having a unique insight into that, I think I can speak to this with a little credibility. And here's what they've always done. It's rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. They tried Russiagate. They failed. They went to Ukraine, impeachment 1, impeachment 2. Then they went to January 6th. Then they went to all sorts of things during COVID. I forgot that. And COVID origins. Then they went to Bountygate. And now they're on to Mar-A-Lago raid. And what they do is the political government gangsters, and the few of them that there are, there's not a lot, gin up information based on false information to do one thing: get President Trump to either not be president or never be president again, whether that's convicting him or dirtying him so much with disinformation tactics, i.e. Hunter Biden laptop and rigging an election, or attacking him personally and directly, viciously, so that Americans are turned off. And when we disprove their disinformation campaign, they come in over the top of the fake news mafia who runs their fake headlines, and half of America still thinks Donald Trump's a Russian asset. When we get past that headline, they go to Hollywood and they rely on Hollywood to scream from the top of their lungs how Orange Man bad. And then once that's defeated, they create a whole new one. And right now we're on the Mar-A-Lago raid. And here's what's going to look. I think recent events have shown that what I've been saying all along in terms of combining, and I'm summarizing here, what President Trump did to be transparent and issue sweeping sets of declassification orders on Russiagate, on Hillarygate, and other things. What may have started as a national defense information, classified information investigation has now, in my opinion, the DOJ has seen we can't indict this guy because he did nothing wrong. But we can go after the people around him. And I think that's what they're going to do.
Do you think that that might have been why your name was not redacted in the documents?
No, they just hate me. I'm not his lawyer. I don't have anything to do with the legal pleadings or filings or any of that stuff. And I found out that there were documents in boxes at Mar-A-Lago when the world found out. So, what are they? Of course, they're going to get the same guys. And you have to look at their bias. Peter Strzok, Andrew Weissman, and all the bozos come on the fake news media to say I should get a lawyer. Remember, Peter Strzok got fired because of my Russiagate investigation. Talk about bias. Andy McCabe, same thing. James Comey, same thing. Lisa Page, same thing. Bill Priestap, same thing. Or they retired early, some of those guys. These people have more bias and animosity in them as the heads of the FBI, and now they're being paid by the fake news media. And the DOJ and these government gangsters at the DOJ, who used to be my bosses in the National Security Division 6 years ago, are now back running the place. And they know the regulations and to say and preach the DOJ does things above board. They are showing how they politically will violate that rule when it suits them. There was no need. What is my name? And look, they're going to attack me all day long. But what is my name being revealed in the next 7 pages being redacted do for America? Nothing. It puts a target on my back. This judge should have came in and said, this adds no value, just redact his name, not to mention it violates DOJ and FBI procedure. And here's another thing. Since I was the first one subpoenaed by the January 6th committee, I had active death threats against me that the FBI was investigating. And on the same day the Mar-A-Lago raid affidavit was unredacted, revealing my name, the FBI coincidentally and finally 10 months later calls my lawyer and says, oh yeah, we ran into some dead ends on that investigation. But don't worry, we're going to unredact his name for the most infamous search warrant in United States history. And you know what happened? The threats started coming right back in. And that's what they want. The hate mail, the racism, the bigotry, everything they accuse us of falsely, they gin up and generate, and they know what they're doing. It's intentional. And anyone telling you otherwise is as corrupt as they are. And for these heathens to come on the radio and TV and say, oh, Kash Patel should get a lawyer, for what? Seriously, like nobody presses back on them, not you. But they just want to threaten those that have destroyed the false narratives they've been bringing, be it Russiagate, now this whole classified, as we've seen, I'm not going to get into it again, but we've outlined why President Trump's the most transparent president, because he declassified documents. So if he did that, then between that and his personal records, it's been shown by Judicial Watch, I think better than anyone, that he's in zero legal jeopardy.
Yeah. I'm convinced that they're coming after you because you're writing the most successful children's books that they can't stand. That's got to be it. You're reaching the minds that they're so frightened for us to reach.
No, look, I appreciate you bringing that up. And, who would have thought, maybe I would have written an adult book, but, we had this great idea to why shouldn't our children be educated with the truth, not politics? Why shouldn't they be taught core values of the value and importance of the truth, of serving your country, of the First Amendment? So we wrote The Plot Against the King. And we actually did it in an apolitical way. We said it in medieval times with people like Hillary Clinton and a Shifty Knight and Duke Devin.
And you're the wizard, which was amazing.
And the wizard. And it's a Russiagate story based, on real life characters without politics, just to show the truth matters more than anything else. And it became the #1 children's book in the country. So plotagainsttheking.com. It's for adults, children, and Truth Social will tell you it's for every one of your pets too. The sequel is coming out in 3 weeks. And when that comes out, as they know in the Washington Post, they've already tried to take me out. They're terrified of what the sequel is going to do because we are teaching kids. We're not politicizing them. We're not corrupting them. We're teaching them the core values of this country. And I'm a proud member to be a part of that education movement.
It's important. So important. So, when I remember, back in 2020, and we're on YouTube, so I can't be too specific, but we know what happened in November of 2020. And after that happened, I remember thinking, okay, Trump still got this, right? Trump, he's the art of the deal. He's the art of war. He's the chess master, right? He's always 3 steps ahead. And so I remember thinking, okay, after November happened, he's still going to find a way to overturn this. And then after, January 6th happened, there's still got to be a way. After Biden's inaugurated, it's like there's still got to be a way. But I think that, for myself and a lot of the American patriots that I talk to and interact with, this has gone on for almost 2 years and we're seeing our country destroyed. We're seeing food crises heading our way, energy crises. We're seeing hyperinflation, all this. It's just boiling up, which, not to even get into the threat of China, Russia, et cetera. And so for a lot of people, it's like, where can we find the hope? And so many people have been looking to President Trump. And I guess, from your perspective, is Trump somehow, is he still three steps ahead in this game that's playing out? Or is he really, fighting tooth and nail to save our country? Because I think for the American people that are watching, I believe that every American that values freedom should be fighting tooth and nail at this time to help save our country. But I think some people are in this place of maybe waiting for Trump to make a big move. I mean, what's your opinion on that? What should we be looking for? What should we as a people be doing?
I think it's combined from President Trump's perspective, and these are just my thoughts on it. But he knows he can stay three steps ahead, which he does masterfully, especially in the media. And he knows he has to fight for this country because there's no one in the position that he's in. I'm sure he'd rather enjoy his retirement, his family, his grandkids, and go off into the sunset after serving his country. But he's so emboldened by and energized by the fake news media to put an end to their destruction of our, not just education system, but our narrative, our history. And on top of that, he's even more empowered to get out there and make it so Americans and the world realize what actually happened. And I think that's a mission he'll never stop fighting for. Look, he's already outmaneuvered him in the media on this entire raid deal that DOJ thought was going to go wonderfully well for them. These people that are running it, as he said, are vicious and evil, and they do everything intentionally. They don't do anything by accident. They're definitely not stupid. Releasing my name was done with intent, even though there were threats made against my life, because they don't care about my life. And they knew that was the same thing. But we're not going to take a knee. I'm certainly not. And President Trump will not bend the knee to these government gangsters. And so where the hope comes is that there's people like that out there. Of course, President Trump has to be the ringleader. But then you have amazing people and platforms like Truth Social and Devin Nunes and guys like Johnny Ratcliffe out there hammering the truth, and Rick Grinnell, another, as Trump would say, beauty, out there talking about what actually happened, guys who have long-standing careers and are credible figures. And people look to them on the news and on podcasts and shows like yours to say, what do we do next? And what did we tell them? I traveled to a country with these guys, doing candidate events for President Trump-backed candidates. And I'm saying, you have to educate yourselves with the truth. You have to turn off the TV and go to platforms like Seth's, and say, this is where America needs to be watching and listening to. And this is what we need to be reading. For instance, our friend Jan Jekielek over at Epoch Times. And I think it has had a big effect because the fake news is proven to be fake to more and more of an audience. We're never going to get them all, but if we get the 8 to 10% in the middle, 2022 and 2024, they're not going to have a chance.
And there's a lot of folks that are saying that there's going to be some sort of plan to prevent the midterms from happening. Whether it's some sort of, there's any number of things I'm hearing. And do you think that we can still successfully get to the midterms? And more than that, I mean, I just interviewed Greg Phillips this week, and he's saying, look, he's on the forefronts with 2,000 Mules and fighting for election integrity, but we're still using the same machines, we're still using a lot of the same processes. None of the the politicians or governors have actually changed any of the fundamentals. So, do you think that the American people will still be able to vote in somewhat of a fair election to be able to choose the people? And because the midterms are so critical, and Biden's talking about, oh, they're going to you turn back on Roe v. Wade, they're going to ban assault weapons. Like, we're at a critical junction right now. Do you think that we're actually going to be able to get out there and vote and have those votes counted properly?
Yeah, I think we're going to win both houses, majorities in both the House and the Senate. And here's why. It connects to what we were just talking about. I think so many voters, so many Americans have been dialed in to what's actually happening and have been shown that they were lied to in the past, be it Hunter Biden's laptop. I mean, the polling on that is clear. Over 80% of Americans have said that they voted for Biden, but if they knew about the Hunter Biden laptop, that it was not Russian disinformation, would have voted for Trump. And there you have it. That's the presidential election from the last time. That's the definition of not a stolen election, but a rigged election, right? And that's what we're talking about. And what I tell people is, when I go to these speaking events, and even when I tell President Trump, is we have to win big, so big it doesn't matter. And that's what we're on the verge of doing. People are fired up for the right reasons, not for hate, not for evil, but for the truth. And they realize you can't just go to the polls every 4 years and make a difference. Those days are long gone. Week in and week out, at the local level, at the town council level, at the student council level, at the student faculty level, at your education platforms, these things matter. And people, especially suburban mothers, have been coming out in droves for our conservative values and America First policies. And that's it. You saw what happened in Virginia. That's what's going to happen again come November. And we are going to get a sweeping majority in the House. And I think we're going to get to like 52, 53 seats in the Senate. And that is going to be a massive victory. And this is what they're terrified of. And this is why when you see the fake news media go scorched earth, you know you are getting to them. And that's what they're doing right now. What are we, 80 days away, 75 days away from the midterms? They know in their little fancy dining clubs that they don't allow the poor in, that they say they represent, that we are going to win. They're just out there lying like they normally do.
So even though it feels like when we look around, it feels like the country's headed to hell in a handbasket, and that there's so much just evil emerging, especially as we start to understand the globalist reach into our country, the CCP's reach into our country, et cetera. But from your perspective, you're really seeing though that the scales are tipping, and that especially with we the people, that we're awakening, we're understanding, we're seeing through the evil, and we're stepping forward. So does that give you? So it comes across to me that you're actually very confident in where we're at in this war, and that the good and righteous people will prevail. Am I correct in understanding that?
I'm confident where we're at as long as we stay the course. I do dozens of these events and speaking engagements around the country for amazing candidates like Kerry and Blake in Arizona, and I'm Laxalt in Nevada, and our other candidates out west in Oz and Herschel and all these folks, right, in JD in Ohio. And when I go and speak to these crowds are energized, and they're big. They're big. They're showing up because they care. They're showing up because they want to say, okay, what do you guys have to say, and how are you going to improve my life? And what's the difference between the Trump administration and now? And I'm a national security guy. I'm not a political guy. I'm a law enforcement guy, national security intel guy. I tell them the differences in how we've been impacted on that front since President Trump left office. And I've said we can go back to those policies and fix our national security infrastructure. But we can also, at the same time, conduct constitutional oversight. And this is the thing that's taking off Americans more than anything else. The two-tier system of justice that is on constant display at every fake news media channel you turn on. They will give Hillary Clinton a pass, but they will attack Donald Trump. They will give everyday Americans indictments over and over again, but they will let FBI corrupt the system and break the law and lie to federal courts to target political opponents. They will let them out with a free pass. What did we just see happen? A 30-year FBI agent in Tybalt was shown the door on Friday night. That doesn't happen. I don't care what kind of disinformation campaign his lawyers are putting out there. Oh, he retired early and he was walked out by his friends. Yeah, okay. What American believes that except the boons that are writing that? And so I think every time you can show the American people, and this is what I stress everywhere I go, I give them example after example after example of a two-tier system of justice, and they are fired up about it. But the fix, you also have to give them the fix. The fix comes with the majority, the gavels in Congress, to conduct constitutional oversight like we did during Russiagate that Devin and I did. So we show the American people the documents themselves, the FBI's documents, the DOJ's documents, the intelligence community's documents, and no redactions, because all the redactions that they want to have cover up corruption. And that is the one thing that they cannot use redactions for. And this sitting FBI director, Christopher Wray, has come out 6 years ago or 5 years ago when we were running Russiagate and we were about to release the Nunes memo. He said, you're going to destroy national security, you're going to kill sources, and America's going to go down a black hole. Well, where's his apology? It's not coming. But he was dead wrong. Nobody died. No relationships were ruined. And American national security was strengthened because we exposed the corruption that Christopher Wray, allowed on his watch, along with Rod Rosenstein at the time, the Deputy Attorney General. So we get all those documents day in and day out that we lawfully obtain. We put them on fightwithcash.com for free. Jan 6 documents, Durham investigation documents, Russiagate documents, depositions, transcripts, Judicial Watch documents. And because my thing is, we have to educate the American people by letting them read it themselves. Don't listen to me or some clown on TV. Read it. And more Americans are going to the website and turning the pages and saying, wow, I'm seeing government corruption. I'm not being told about it. And when they hear otherwise from the fake news media, they call them out. That's the win. That's how you win in November.
And so fightwithcash.com, that's the main website that you want people to go to.
Yeah, it's my foundation. So it's a 501c3 charity. Took us a long time to stand up, but we're doing tuition assistance, summer camps, veterans assistance, and active duty member service assistance. And we have a legal defense fund established. If you've been defamed or deplatformed, you can have your day in court. We provide all of the fees and all of the assistance for any of those efforts. We are a 501c3 charity finally, and we are in the process of finalizing the paperwork with the lawyers, but we're up at fightwithcash.com. Check out our mission and join us, not necessarily in donations. We'll go fund it. Join us and advertise it and give it to your friends to say, this is where I got the information and the documents, and maybe pick up a cool t-shirt or hat along the way, because all the proceeds right back to the foundation. I'm proud to say I'm the only 501c3. None of our board members earn a single dollar. No one's on salary. Every dollar we can put back out goes right back out the door.
Such important work that you're doing. So we've got a few more minutes. I have one final question, is that if you could tell every American that cares about freedom, every American patriot, if you could tell them one thing that they can do to help save our country, what would that be?
Get educated. That's it. I never thought the national security law enforcement intel guy, would be such a pro-education advocate. It's not that I didn't want it before. It's just that it wasn't in my lane. And this children's book sort of opened my eyes. And I said, well, if we can educate children, we got to educate the adults, right? Because they are the mothers and fathers and uncles and aunts of these kids. And if they're led astray because they don't take the time to do it, then we failed, then I failed. So that's why we created Truth Social. That's why we created platforms of free speech. And that's why we're putting out the documents day in and day out. And that's why when I go around the country, I tell them, I give them the summary of what our findings were in Russiagate and how evil and corrupt that was. But I said, hey, we only got out 60% of this stuff. What do you think's left in the remaining 40%? Do you think it's a coincidence that these same corrupt FBI agents and DOJ officials went in and raided Mar-A-Lago when we were on the verge of lawfully releasing the remaining Hillary Clinton and Russiagate documents? What are they hiding? They're not hiding sources and methods. They're hiding government corruption. And I think more Americans need to become hip to that fact and march on with us, because this is the one thing DOJ listens to, is the public chorus. If there's a public outcry against their corruption that we have proven, then they will be forced to follow the law and allow government oversight at Congress so more documents can come out. So that's what I want. We haven't even scratched the surface. We're going to keep going. But you can always find me at Kash on Truth Social. Actually, you can't find me anywhere else. I don't exist. There's a lot of fake accounts out there, but that's the only place I'm on social media, and fightwithcash.com. And look, we're going to keep going. We've got book 2 coming out, The Plot Against the King 2. The media is going to lose it when they see the title. I mean, they are absolutely going to lose it, because they're probably going to think we could never have touched this with our educating our children. But you can. There's nothing that's off the table if you do it in a honest, decent, and fair way.
Exactly.
And that's what we're doing.
Can you tell me just quickly, how's Trump holding up? I mean, he'd had his own home violated. How's he doing with this? I mean, is he keeping his head up? I mean, I worry so much about that man.
It's amazing. Just when you think he would be down or kind of like bummed out, I've never seen him in greater spirits or more energized. And I think that's what the biggest miscalculation has been with the fake news media and these guys at DOJ and FBI and everywhere else. The guys that have been saying, I got you, I got you, I got you. He's like, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. In fact, let's just put out the truth, and the truth is going to expose your corruption. He's the, he's the tip of the spear, and we're behind him as the shield, trying to deflect and block and tackle for him where we can. But I think he's energized because America's starting to learn that is actually how much he cares about this country. And the more he's the one unique individual. The more you throw at him, he's kind of like the Hulk. He's like, well, I'll just ingest this, and then I'm going to go rampage in a good way for America, America transparency, America first policies. And so I think, Americans are seeing that more and more, and they're seeing what they've done to his family, his kids. They're seeing what they've done to his, people, his advisors and things like that, and take him down on political conquest. And they're seeing the 2-tier system of justice. And that is one thing I will always fight. And I think he's going to be the leader in that fight. And it's going to be an interesting fall and winter here.
Well, great. Well, Kash, you've given me hope that I haven't had in quite some time. So I really appreciate that. Thank you again for everything that you're doing. Everyone who's watching, make sure you go to fightwithcash.com and make sure you pick up Kash's recent book, The Plot Against the King, correct?
That's it. Plotagainsttheking.com. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
And next time, I promise we'll do it for a little longer.
All right. Thank you so much, Kash. I really appreciate it. Take care.